Hey, how you doing? I know it's like already the 8th of March. And I haven't, well, I filmed a couple things and nothing kind of worked out. I tried to do a couple projects and none of them worked out, which I don't know. And so today I decided, like, you better get on it, girl. People are waiting. So today I want to do a work day. I'm trying to get ready and get as much of my work done for my clients as I possibly can. This is a restoration quilt, which is kind of neat. And if you're not getting notified, just know that I post every week. Usually, this is a rarity that I didn't post last week. But every week I try to post 1 or 2 videos every week. If everything goes smoothly in my life, which it usually doesn't. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to put leaders on this quilt. I already have leaders on this quilt right here, but the edges on this antique quilt is kind of falling apart like this. This was hand pieced also. So while I'm working on this quilt, I'm going to be kind of getting this quilt ready. Look at that. And trimming and ironing and just getting it ready for the long arm. So that's what we're gonna do today. I hope you're okay with it. I would think you'd get bored of long arm quilting work days, guys, but apparently y'all don't. I number my leaders. I've said this before, and then I do a basting stitch to the back fabric. I only use 2 leaders. I'm also gonna do a video on how to make leaders. I already filmed it, did a couple leaders. But if you don't want to do leaders, you can buy the zippers at Linda's Electric Quilting, and you can buy a set of 2 or a set, like buy 2 of them. Make sure you buy 2 so that you have them for the top of the back fabric and for the bottom of the back fabric, and you could sew them onto your, what you pin on. And then you can literally, and you don't have to make a leader like this. I know a lady who numbered the zippers as if they were leaders, and she would sew the back fabric to this ledge, and it worked. Instead of spending $120 to put leaders on your long arm, you could use just the zipper, but you are going to have to sew this zipper to your material that's on your long arm, like the canvas right there. Why are you crying? You going in your room? You okay? Yes? We haven't been up here in a while, huh? So I wanted to kind of share what I've been up to. I haven't been up here in like 3 weeks, 2 weeks maybe 3. And the reason is I started doing a lot of work downstairs, and then I was doing a lot of work in my house. Look at her. She doesn't bark all day, but if I'm out here, she's at it, little booger. So I'm gonna base this down, and I'm gonna do, I think I should iron it first because I don't know if you can see the texture on it because it's been well loved. And I'm gonna do small base, little tiny base. And the reason I'm doing tiny base is because I'm going to have to trim off some of the design, and then I'm gonna have to come back in here and trim this off. Thank God I gave myself enough like batting on this end, and then flatten this out as much as I can. Like, this was hand done by someone. Let me raise this up a little bit. Ironing flattens out everything almost. Iron with steam. So I'm going to base these edges out, but I'm gonna iron first. So now you can see how beautiful. You don't throw that away. It's beautiful. Then while I'm here, I haven't ironed, I'm gonna just stabilize all this down. So when the long arm comes across, the flatter your quilt, the better the process for the long armor. And then I hit this, it's called trim. And then you have these points that you hit to trim. So I'm going to show you what I do on the long arm to trim that off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim the side, the top, and the side. This way it's not quilting on the batting and I'm not wasting that batting, even though it's not that big of a deal. So you click, 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 and I'm going in a bit, so when I go in, I'm going in a fourth. Here, and then hit stop. And so I'll start and then trim off so it doesn't go over. Now I'm also going to do it on the side here and then also do it on this side. And the neat thing about doing this is the foot has a like 1/4 inch seam, and here's the trim off. One of the blessings of trimming off certain areas is this way you don't waste one thread, not that it's that big of a deal, but also too, you're not using or sewing over the design over the quilt itself, and then it'll come back and catch and literally grab your fabric and cause it to be torn. How do I know? Because this happened to me before. You can literally move the design where you want it within the trim points, and so it gives you the ability to kind of shift back and forth and move it, shrink it, extend it, even go over if you wanted to, but have it like perfectly sitting within your trim points. And it does these little stitches to find the next area to go, and then I'll re-quilt around, and then I'll stop, do a couple lock stitches, and then move to the next section. Now it is kind of thready, it has like these little thread lines that you will have to trim later, but it's a lot better than the machine quilting in the space and then it grabbing a seam and causing problems, you know? As you can see, it finished quilting and then it trimmed out parts of the design. Now when it trims out, it kind of leaves this, so I'm going to fix that, but I didn't quilt anywhere over the whole piece. And what this does is it keeps it from quilting off and then it catching these basted seams. So I'm going to roll the quilt. It quilted really pretty. This quilt is really well restored and it's beautiful. Let's keep working. You can see it. It just beautifully took it up. And I've noticed, like, if I iron in the direction that I want the fabric to go, it just takes up very pretty. Of course, like, when I finish the quilt for my client, I usually remove all basting and all trim off threads. Once you do your plotting points, don't move the quilt, because I ended up moving the quilt up and down a bit. So I guess find placement, then remove all the trimming plotting points, because then you're not moving the quilt. But I did it opposite. I did the plotting points to trim out, and then I moved the quilt because I didn't know exactly where the design was sitting. So I redid it, so now it's done right. And if I would have quilted it, then the plotting points would have been off on the quilt and the design would have gone off. So just make sure that you know what you're doing. So I just finished the last row, and as you can see, I trimmed the bottom part off completely from the program. And you can see it quilted really well. It was nice and flat. I'm gonna put another antique quilt on. This is mine. Let's put it on. How beautiful it is. She's beautiful. I want to show you what it looks like when the thread tails in the back. I guess in the back you can see it better. Do you see how the design comes and trims? And it just trimmed off part of the design. Remove these thread tails and the basting stitch off, and you'll end up having this, and then that's what you'll have. So you'll have to kind of like trim off the thread tails in the front and in the back.